Hey, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Uh, yeah, now I'm doing a James Bond rap or James Bond hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah, I started playing that game First Light just yesterday and I finished the training mission, but that's as far as I've gotten so far.
Oh yeah. So you saw the training montage and stuff. That was a pretty big highlight for me.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, I liked yeah, it seems almost like a spiritual successor to like the Splinter Cell or like Hitman games or something because I like at least in the training mission, I like how you can go through the whole thing in stealth or like not in stealth pretty
Yeah,
much.
for the training mission. Do you mean the hotel mission or
No, just like rescuing people from like sea containers or
oh that
like
one? Yeah,
a base that looks like sea containers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting how like if you've seen the actual combat or someone else play, that mission is so limited in terms of like the actions that you actually are able to do. Even if you go back to it, like once the game teaches you like the real combat and opens up more, when you go back to that mission, you are like actually restricted to like a single like takedown or punch button. And there's
Yeah.
actually the fascinating thing is there's a bunch of like challenges in a lot of the campaign missions, and if you go back to that first level, there's actually a couple different routes, and there's like a challenge for like aerial takedowns in that mission and stuff,
Oh,
uh, which makes it. But it's so interesting because when I played that first mission as well, it felt like okay, this is a very linear mission. Like I'm doing the correct thing. Like it's a consistent story. But then then I watched like the Minmax Deepest Dive, and they were saying like it's true that whatever you do as a player, it feels natural and correct. But then it turns out there's like branching pathways, like not significantly branching, but like different. There's like different routes. You can go like left or right at different points, and everything just kind of works. And it's not like super varied, but it's just that like it to me it felt like this is a very like refined, polished, like scripted route. Like everything I'm wedging through this crack or whatever. But a lot of
yeah.
times you are able to like go around the other way, or uh, it's kind of interesting where they make this like it's so it just makes it feel like whichever direction you pick naturally is correct and feels very like they
Yeah.
wanted you to do that. But then I think there's like multiple, so you never like run into a dead end and realize like, oh, they wanted me to go the other way. Like I feel like they make every route work or something.
Yeah, like the level design is done pretty well. That's was something that I was thinking about too, how like yeah, pretty much always felt like I just ended up going in the right direction just by design, which
Yeah,
is like kind of cool. Yeah. I
yeah, it's
like
funny how much training like that. I guess right now you sort of calling that the training mission, but I feel from playing like because there's so much training in this game actually. Like
okay.
it ends up like working into the story like a whole training sequence, and then even like your first like real world mission is very much like training you to play the game still. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but I thought it's so well woven into the story. Like for me, because I watched someone like do like combat on a stream, and then I jumped into like that first mission, and it was very like kind of like slower and cinematic and restricting the player. But I was like very excited to just see like it's like, oh, this is a cool story. Like I like how this is going, and then it just the game does such a good job of like entertaining you story wise, while it sort of delivers you different mechanics and then opens up more, that it's such a nice blend of different kinds of like entertainment.
Yeah, it could be like because I'm on the normal difficulty and not like the difficult or like hard difficulty. But yeah, the enemies so far seem like pretty easy to take down, which like I always think is like yeah, it's like all of the enemies have like a little bit less like
Yeah.
situational awareness than I would expect somebody like in that environment to have. Like it's like I don't know, like I think if I was holding a gun and I was guarding a trench, like I might look into the trench every once in a while. Like
Yeah, you would never like, yeah, if you hear anything, you wouldn't just be like, well, I'll check it out if it makes a bit more noise than that. It's like,
yeah.
but one thing that's impressive about the enemies is like if there's a couple of them around, like in some later missions, like a lot of later missions, or like quite early on, they take you into these like fake training environments where there's actually like they do a good job of like making it seem like in world real, like you're going through a course with like actors or something almost.
Mhm.
Uh, but they'll like if one enemy sort of comes over to you, then others will gather, and they do a good job of like flanking you, like getting around to the sides or behind you. So you have
Okay.
to keep like moving, and then when if there's like three enemies right next to you, like they will attack like one at a time, and the game has a nice way of telegraphing like if they're about to punch you, it'll flash yellow on the enemy, and even if they're
Uh,
off screen, like you can be like turned around and they'll be like behind you off camera, and it'll the yellow flash still will be like correctly at the bottom of the screen, so you can always sense like if someone's going to punch you, and you can do this like counter, and like if you counter a couple times he does like a counter attack, and you can like grapple people and throw them into each other, and there's an insane number of things that feel very like fluid and action packed.
yeah.
Uh, like once you start getting into like you'll be like sliding across like a surface, kicking the gun out of someone's hand, like throwing them into someone else, like countering another person. Someone will like run and try to grab you, and you'll like step out of the way and then like push them, in a certain direction. Uh, and then you can even like once you take your gun out, you have this kind of an ability to like slow time slightly. There's like a meter you can like refill by doing certain actions that gives you a little bit of ability to like slow time when you're aiming, and
Mm.
that's cool because you can shoot the gun out of people's hands, or you can
Oh, that's sweet.
uh, yeah. There's so many. It does really feel like, but then it's funny if you watch like a James Bond film, you'll see him he does like he fights in the exact same way where he'll be like grappling with people. They do this shooting the gun out of the hands. Uh, yeah, there's so many like just the way this game has you do combat is turns out to be very similar to the movies, but I never would realize that without like watching or playing both.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because like I don't like I've seen all the James Bond movies, but like some of the, like the most I've
Mm.
seen one of them is probably like three times or something like that. So like I don't know like yeah, I can't really like imagine any of the combat scenes in my head. So it makes me wonder if like somebody that has seen is like a really big fan of all the movies and like the choreography, if they would like be more intuitive at playing the game. Because yeah, like I wouldn't think to shoot the gun out of somebody's hands, but like knowing that that happens in the movies, like I'm sure people that watch the movies and are like fans of them are are thinking like, I wonder if I could do that move that he did in this movie, like yeah, where he shoots the gun out of the hand or something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
definitely the game like teaches you directly as well. It like forces you to shoot a gun at someone's hands in training to like.
Okay. Yeah.
But then also if your gun runs out of bullets, you can like throw the gun at someone, and that's also. But we watched a few nights ago we watched a movie called Spy, which is like a parody of James Bond. And in one fight scene, they grappled with someone, ran out of bullets, they shot the gun out of someone else's hand, ran out of bullets, threw the gun, and then grappled with somebody and like tossed them. And it was sort of like it's like, oh, they're doing all those fight moves because those are like the parody moves of James Bond, and then but those moves are the games like they're the main moves in the video game because they're like the most recognizable. Uh,
Yeah. That reminds me of like there's that movie that like Leslie Nielsen comedy called like Wrongfully Accused.
oh yeah.
That we watched a bunch. Me and Tyler just watched the movie that's supposed to be a parody of called The Fugitive, and it's like actually like a pretty good, I guess like cop drama or something. But it is almost like scene for scene like the like watching it made me laugh because it just it felt like a parody of the parody because I had only seen the parody
Yeah.
before. But yeah, like they have and like the characters almost look exactly the same too. Like there's this one like prison guard on a bus. And it looks like they almost hired like the exact same actor to to do the parody movie that was like years later. But yeah, like we were just like laughing the whole time because we were remembering all the jokes. But yeah, that movie The Fugitive is also like a pretty good movie on its own. Like it's not supposed to be funny, but like if you watch the parody Wrongfully Accused first, then like it ends up being pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember that one scene where the guy starts ringing off like he's been escaped for this exact amount of time. Like he could be by horse, by whatever. He could be taking a helicopter. Like if he's and he lists off all these like if he's on a bicycle, he's traveled exactly 38.2 miles. Like
Yeah. Yeah, there was one scene where like I guess like some of the parody is because of like how like emotionally dramatic like the original film is. Like when they're sentencing the guy, like they're sentencing the guy to like life in prison for something that he didn't do. And like the scene of that happening is like a judge like speaking really deep and slow as he's like banging his gavel in slow motion, being like, "May God have mercy on your soul," and then he hits the gavel. But like in wrongfully accused, it's like the same thing. But he goes like, "May God have mercy on your soul, you goddamn bastard," or like something like that.
he
Like,
personally hates the guy.
yeah, like it's like overdone, but like so to such an extreme. Like,
They should make like a cut of both, like do one scene and the other scene, like show all the parallels.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure I could find a video that like does that. That'd be so funny.
It would be interesting, like for the generation that maybe grew up and didn't, because I didn't even know that Wrongfully Accused was like a direct parody of, and I never saw The Fugitive. But like for the generation that like saw Wrongfully Accused as the first movie and kind of just thought that was a comedy, if somebody just took only that knowledge and then tried to make like a serious version of Wrongfully Accused, and then and then it kept going back and forth, like then there'd be like a movie that stands on its own that is serious and good, and then people would parody that and they would just keep going, but like no one would do the historical research of like how many
Right?
times it's gone back and forth. They would just, and then it would get like weirder and weirder. Like there'd be like these things that are like only from the parody that were kind of cool that like get incorporated and then parodied like again.
Have you are you like interested in the Backrooms, and have you seen the Backrooms movie yet?
Yeah, I saw the Backrooms movie,
Yeah, me
but
too.
I'm just like very interested in the concept of Backrooms and
Same.
a lot of the like the weird YouTube videos. Yeah, but
They
I've
did
never
it. There
been
was a
like a
lot of
fan of it before.
narration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
feel like they had to specifically like try and answer some direct questions about what the backrooms are, and they had to like give character motivations and stuff, which are not
yeah,
really, and they weren't like the strongest character motivations or exposition, or like people call it like screenplay when they're sort of explaining like stuff to the audience. uh
yeah,
and that stuff is not, that's like if you have the concept of the backrooms and you have 2 hours, there's so many more interesting things I want to see than just like a guy in a room like just kind of explaining stuff to the audience or something. And
yeah, yeah.
so
Like I
yeah,
thought it was a good movie, but like that was my comment to my friends after we saw it too. Was that like I thought that their like idea to go like yeah screenplay and have like overtop narration almost the whole time, like I thought that was like a strange direction to take it in, and I think they're probably gonna like lose some of their audience because of it. But like I don't think it was like a bad decision, and I still think it's a good movie. But like personally, like I was expecting, because I didn't see any trailers, like too many trailers or anything like that before going in. So like my expectation was that the whole thing was gonna be found footage, and like we were only gonna know the characters through what they said on that found footage film.
yeah,
And I think like that is what I would have preferred to see in a movie. But like at the same time, like yeah, if you're I feel like yeah, if you're releasing like a movie like nowadays, like we're just kind of like in an era of movie making where like the direction that they took it in kind of makes sense for like how other movies are handling being on screen. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like I guess because like people going into that movie, like people that are just movie fans and haven't heard of the Backrooms before, like going into
yeah,
the movie,
they need
it
like a
would make
movie that
sense.
really, yeah, because if it,
Yeah,
yeah, it's true that if it was all like found footage, because we kind of know, we feel like familiar with the backrooms, it would make sense to us even if it was like out of sequence, no story or plot or whatever. But I guess
yeah,
yeah, people would. I feel like the audience that just stumbling in would reject like a movie if it doesn't like give them some kind of answer and plot and feel like it kind of wraps up in some kind of way. But yeah, so
yeah,
it's like kind of like two different audiences. But I guess the story of like how that movie came about is interesting because the director is like, I think his name is Kane Parsons, And on
Mhm.
YouTube, he has a channel called like Kane Pixels, and that channel has like some of the best like backrooms videos that are really kind of central to the lore are all made by this guy like Kane Parsons. But he made them when he was like 14, and they're all made in like Blender, and it's like found footage made inside Blender, but they look like really good, and they do people have like analyzed them, and they do have a whole like interconnected like plot line that people have like discovered. But
Mhm.
then this guy, he was 14 when he made those videos like 10 years ago, but now he's like 20. Like he's a 20-year-old director, and like A24, the studio, gave him like approximately $1 million to make this movie. And so this is like his like theatrical, movie. Like he's like a 20-year-old director making this movie. And
Yeah.
I guess he made the right choice that like this movie kind of works for all. Like it's like fan service enough that the fans like it, and it kind of explains itself so that people are not like they think they understood as they walk out if they know nothing
Yeah.
else.
I
Yeah.
guess it
But
could
also
also
the
have been like because if he is interested in like sort of classical movie making as well, then like that could have sort of been his message was like, hey, like this is my chance to break into being like a writer and director for like uh yeah, like movie theater movies and like but this is the type of movie I want to make if I'm doing that and like so he kind of maybe switched up the the found footage to yeah being more of a screenplay for that reason too to say like hey I'm capable of like directing normal movies though and I want to make normal movies so I don't know like but yeah like personally yeah I still think that I wish that it was all found footage or like maybe like that he would release like a director's cut length movie of like just the found footage without all of those parts with the characters sort of like narrating themselves.
Yeah,
Like I
and
think
the
that
sort of
would be interesting.
the more, I guess, slightly like grotesque like horror elements. That's my least favorite thing to see because it's sort of just like visually off-putting, and it just like it definitely like they did a good job with like the monsters and like that whole like pirate monster. Like I thought like that was pretty like people were saying like that's a pretty scary monster and like well done. But then for me, I don't really have like I'm sort of scared by those kind of monsters, and then like I'm grossed out by like the gross stuff as they would want me to be. But then I don't really see any benefit from that. Like it just feels like I like it's sort of like not fun to sort of watch, but also I'm like looking at my clock and being like they could be showing us like so much cool backroom stuff instead of this like drawn out like tense sequence where there's ultimately like no resolution other than like oh that was scary or something. But
Yeah.
I just want to yeah, I always my preference for a movie which kind of I feel like I wonder how much this is just specifically like my bias, but it's like I want to see like I guess what I would do is like combine my preferences with like what today is trying to do where it's like a lot of movies that came out a while ago were like Jason Bourne and I guess more recently we had like John Wick. Like it's always like an sort of a male protagonist that used to be like has some kind of military training and then they're thrown into like a bizarre environment like the back rooms and they sort of
Mhm.
fall back on like they sort of like reluctantly come out of retirement and like use all the skills they have to accomplish some kind of like mission in like a very professional like proficient way.
Yeah.
But
It
what
would
but
actually
I
be
guess
like
the yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would
I was
say
gonna
though,
say
like,
that
yeah, I'll just mention, like, I think that's sort of that's problematic. Like, I think my bias is like specifically that, but what I would do to adjust it these days is have that character be like flawed in some way, like maybe even very similar to how like this character was flawed. Like, you'd show the character being like, and they did not have good relationships, and they sort of were the problematic one in the relationships. But then you could combine that with like they're very able to like go through the back rooms and like survive and do what's necessary to like get to the bottom of the back rooms, but they're flawed in the way that like their PTSD, their problematic relationship issues, their inability to rely on other people like leads them to sort of like get trapped and something in the back rooms. And you could bring in like a therapist and sort of have it like this therapist can get through to them, and you could almost combine like the real aspect of being lost and threatened in the back rooms with like the therapist visits, and you could like blend both where like sometimes the guy's in the back rooms like fighting for his life, sometimes he's in the therapy office, but it's like which one is more of a threat to him, his own mind or the back rooms, which are like perhaps a projection of his own mind. But then you could have
Mhm.
the the more like the softer therapist character like saving him from the back rooms by using some kind of sort of like calming down the back rooms in a way and making sense of them to help him escape. And that would be like an analogy for like, okay, he like she actually saved him in the end, even though he's like doing all this action-packed stuff in the back rooms. It's leading nowhere because he's just sort of deepening his own like mental issues. But then
Mhm.
the real saving comes from like talking him out of it and making him realize like you're not going to fight your way out of this. You know, you got to like work on yourself and calm down and like see the path out or something like that. But I feel
Yeah.
like that would just be like a way to get some story in there, but also show us a bunch of background. But then I guess budget comes into it. Like you can't do infinite set or
Mhm.
whatever or different scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought like the whole like therapy like yeah, the whole movie just seemed to sort of be about like yeah, internal spiral and like therapy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like
I
that
just
was like
don't like when the
a really
characters like
huge theme.
they make like bad decisions. Like it's sort of like
Yeah.
it's like
What I
okay, like
thought
this
like
guy's got problems, but he's redeemable. But then
yeah,
whenever it's like okay, and he made another mistake and another mistake, and then at some point
yeah.
it's like you
Like I
know what,
tried to
this guy just makes
focus
mistakes.
yeah. Like the whole time, like I was trying to focus I guess like more on the backrooms and like what the characters meant like for the backrooms than the other way around. So
Mhm.
my like my thinking like after watching like when I was still like sitting in the movie theater like and we were watching the credits like I was mentioning to my friends that like I thought that it was interesting that like they show I think the main character's name is uh
Yeah, I forget too actually.
it's Clark I think actually yeah it's Clark
Yeah, Clark. Yeah, Captain
um
Clark.
yeah yeah so yeah my takeaway from it was that like it was interesting to me that Clark ends up having like a more survivable relationship with the backrooms. Like they're going through that whole
Oh yeah.
scene where he's like at the dinner table with the therapist and like the only reason none of the monsters are attacking anybody is like because Clark has somehow formed like a relationship with those characters. And like so he seems to have like somewhat of like a more control over the backrooms wherever he is in it. Like they don't really clarify whether all of the backrooms are in Clark's mind or whether it's kind of like everybody's mental health issues are the backrooms or something like that. Like they sort of talk about how like the monsters are uh like memories of real people in the real world, but they are like remembered the wrong way in the backrooms, but
Yeah.
somehow yeah, like so what was like interesting to me was that like Clark like was figuring this stuff out about the backrooms and able to survive in the backrooms and then like when he's eating with the therapist and she says like and he says that like I think you were wrong about me and then she says like yeah like I think I was wrong about you like there's like two takeaways for me
Oh
for
yeah.
that and it's like the first one is that like she says that so enthusiastically and quickly because she's like yeah you're crazy like I was wrong about you but then
Yeah,
another
and
one
he's
is
just here
also
sort of like, yeah, exactly.
yeah, but then I think another one is also that, like, he's actually, like, surviving in his situation, and, like, that kind of reflects how the real world is going for him too, is that, like, he is he is, like, arguably, like, a successful person, but, like,
Mhm.
he's just kind of working in, like, a really strange, uh, place that, like, doesn't have a lot of, like, social interaction, and he doesn't have a lot of friends, like, so it's, like it's a strange yeah like I guess juxtaposition of like wow this guy is like so unhealthy that he's destroying his own world but also wow this guy is really successful he has like a wife they're planning on having kids but he's just kind of going like internally crazy like so I thought that was like a big like I guess point of like where I could see like yeah like that really works in a horror context like that's what I really liked about it. But yeah, like the fact that he has a different relationship with the backrooms is like interesting to me.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how like it's sort of like when people like, let's say that Clark has kind of like some anger issues or some like self-confidence issues, and he also was like an alcoholic, so he definitely has like some personal issues that are kind of like eating away at him inside. But then like, and so he's kind of a monster in a lot of people's universe, like especially his ex-wife. It seems like, he was kind of like this monster kind of terrorizing her a little bit, even though sometimes he was not a monster or whatever. Is
Mhm.
like this switch personality or something. But then inside his own mind, like his world makes sense to him, and sometimes like he's sort of scared of he scares himself or whatever, but not in like a threatening way. And I feel like the sort of the dynamic of like like an angry alcoholic being a threat to others, but sort of internally their world makes sense to themselves, and they're sort of like they're at peace with themselves, but little do they know like they're kind of deluding themselves. And even though like they feel like relaxed in their own life and that they're in control or something, eventually like they lead to their own downfall, which is kind of like the it just feels like that's how the backrooms played out, where like first Clark is kind of like concerned when he doesn't have anyone, he's on his own, he's kind of like a little bit afraid of being alone, but then he like comes to terms with himself but doesn't actually address his own issues. He just kind of like recedes into himself, and then eventually like does kind of his own downfall is his internal vices that like lead to his death or whatever. Uh, and that I sort of like just shows. But how the ending of the movie happened, it sort of made me feel like when the therapist character is talking to that scientist in the room, it's sort of like kind of shows you like that is the surface level reality, like that's the real world that she's in, but it's also unclear if she's kind of fully escaped the back rooms or not, or whether they'll let her escape. And I felt that it was very interesting to start thinking that even like outside the movie, like the reality that we live in, there are people that are like a little bit strange or different, or there's these like there are like back rooms in different places, or there's like companies that have weird bureaucratic procedures that it's just people shuffling around, but it's working. It mimics like life is like mimicking itself in all these pockets all over our reality, like the actual reality. And then if you like sort of dive into these pockets, you might find that it goes to infinity. Like it's weirder and weirder until it's like just unrecognizable mockery of like some kind of system that hasn't been used in so long. And it felt like that a little bit, like in that final discussion where uh, the guy was kind of like doing an interview, but he was like a little bit lost in his own mind, where he's like, we just want to learn about these back rooms, and like he didn't really have like a follow up like question or ability to explain anything. And it sort of felt like this company, like even the company that is studying the back rooms, is kind of like forgetting what they even want out of that. Like maybe
Yeah.
originally their profit, it's like companies are profit driven, but then that just leads to like an misunderstanding of what they even do want. And sometimes then it's like, do they even want profit, or do they want like the collapse of profit so they can like buy up everything? Or uh so it just felt like it's like, yeah, like reality makes sense if you like squint at it, or if you just kind of live your life, but then sometimes you confront these things that don't make sense, and they seem like almost like a parody of themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like if you stack enough of those on top of each other, there's these deep like levels that are just totally totally weird or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like interesting to think about because, like, yeah, I think humans are all kind of like fundamentally flawed. Like, people have like flaws in their personality and things like that, and like, but everybody is always also usually trying to do their best as well. But like, uh, it just like is, yeah, an interesting like thing to encounter, like somebody that does have like a sort of like deep-seated issue or something like that, like, or like is struggling. um it's like interesting to come across people that are trying to like do very well but then like contradict themselves, like that whole, it's like when I meet somebody new, sometimes I'll feel like, oh, like what's your world like, sort of thing. But like when somebody's world has like something that's like conflicting in it, and like I think that's what like I saw in that character Clark, like is like that the conflict in his mind is kind of like the back rooms and like everything being like misremembered because like he wants to do his best but like he can't for some reason, and he also has like outside struggles, so it like makes sense that the way that he like judges people or like views other people is like a misremembering of them, like, but that would probably be a projection of his own like uh failings or something, like him searching for an answer for himself maybe.
Yeah, it. Uh, I guess my instinct of like wanting to see like a like in like Better Call Saul. Did you ever see that show?
Actually didn't know. I haven't seen Breaking Bad either.
Yeah, I don't think I even watched Breaking Bad. I just watched Better Call Saul. But there's some
Mhm.
cool characters in that show that are like very like they're very like precise and organized, and like they have like a very hard internal set of rules that they like follow, and they're like they wear a suit and they're just very like well mannered, and but it's like the world they're in is like this chaos like drug slinging world, but they're sort of the very responsible like businessman that is like cold and calculating on the surface, where like they're just sort of like they seem like very smart and like three steps ahead, and they're just sort of taking this they're like managing this chaos in like such a professional way that you sort of you just like are like, wow, that guy's like really checked out and organized, and seems like oddly like principled and like following morals and ethics, that are consistent in a way that's like refreshing almost, even though they're like the head of this drug empire or something.
Mhm.
But I always picture like, if like if the Backrooms 2 or something came out and it started with like humanity's now taken a much more like organized approach to this, and you see like a guy like like basically someone saying like we're calling in the expert, and like the guy walks in with like this like metal briefcase, like sits down, clicks it open like very like proper, and then like has these like has weapons, instruments, like this whole like scene of like
Yeah.
preparing, and then like this whole plan, and it would just be cool to see like them being like show so much knowledge of the back rooms, being like this is the like they could just ring off like some techno babble of like how
Mhm.
this is how you deal with this like structure and map it out, and they could have like a team that like is wearing gear going in. uh but then so the fun thing for me there is like this is what I imagine as like the most intelligent, thought out, like they have backup plans and they have the gear, they have the equipment, everyone's like communicating well, and then just to see like what then the creative part, which I don't know the answer to, is like what do you then do in the back rooms to throw off like that team? Like how do you break them immediately, and then like watch them like professionally fall back onto the backup plan and like make hard decisions very quickly, and like you'd see this
Yeah.
like you'd see like these are the best, like this is the best shot we have, and then see them just like stumble and get mixed up, and then like show something that like gets to the core of their personal battle, that like whatever they've done such a good job of hiding, like they've hid the humanity of themselves away, like have the backrooms really find that and target that, and then give us like a flashback where it's like, oh damn, like when they encountered that room that we thought was like nothing, it was so challenging for them personally because of something that like happened. And it would
Right.
sort of tie it back to like you can never like, no matter what you do to like add structure to the world, you can't escape like the humanity of ourselves, and how like just the natural world will present you something that is the counter to whatever you've tried to build on top, like the structure you try to build on top of it. It would be
Yeah,
fun
I'm
to
imagining like yeah, I'm imagining now like that team that you're describing of like I guess like scientific professionals that would go in and do that research. Like it'd be interesting to see like that happen, and then that sort of uh like some team on the outside can tell that it's falling apart and they're just like, okay, like we should send in the SAS to go get them. And then like a team of like survival experts, like but in like the back rooms setting, has to go in and save like they'd be like cutting like I don't know computer monitor wires to like wrap around their forearms for like it's for
yeah,
like shields or
snapping like a
something. I don't
router to the
know.
back of
Yeah.
it. It's funny you say SAS, because in the James Bond game, when you get into like the in-game training sequences, the like the sort of the opponents that are pretending to be like your opposition in the training missions are the SAS. And
Mm.
there's funny parts where uh like there's a funny sequence that like was commented on a lot in the min-max deepest dive, and that is kind of, it's fun to play through in the game, but it keeps making you think like, wait, what? Because you're like basically going through this compound, and you like, a lot of it is like getting the flag is a big part of the training in this game. And so you basically, they're just like, okay, the SAS is guarding the compound, you have to get the flag, but you can just like kind of uh like there's a whole bluff mechanic in this game where when an enemy confronts you, you can like choose to lie to them in order to like peacefully get past or whatever, or you can like
Yeah.
beat them up or something. But it's funny that in the min-max stream, they were like getting into fights with these guys sometimes, and they would like push them into the water, and they would just like land unconscious, like face down in the water, and they'd be like, well, that guy's definitely dead, like that's your colleague, like you just killed your colleague or whatever. And they're like, and then they're like, no, like the dive team will take, like in the min-max they're joking, they're like, no, the dive team's got him, like he's gonna be fine. And he just like, the guy just like sinks like into the water, like face down. And it's just kind of funny. And then actually another part, uh, you can like electrocute a guy where he's like, there's like water on the ground, and you can like flip this like electrical switch that like electrocutes him, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
definitely that is like doing damage to that guy. Like he just got fully electrocuted. Like he's
I
just like
do
a
love
big guy.
like ever since Overwatch, the game Overwatch like releases a lot of like behind the scenes content and stuff like that. And one of my favorite ones is all of the voice actors talking about um recording their electrocute voice line. And like ever since then, whenever somebody gets electrocuted in a game, I think like, man, a voice actor had to be in a booth like like just shaking themselves while they're screaming. Like, so, yeah, I like thinking about that. Yeah. But I'm interested to get to that part now to hear what the voice line sounds like.
Yeah, there's a cool, even that level has challenges where it's like, take like sneak past anyone, don't get seen, or like take out everyone in the whole level. And people in min-max in this Discord, they were talking about like how it's like, you do your playthrough where you silently make it through and you don't disturb anyone, and then you do your challenge playthrough where you try to beat up everyone, and you have to like run around the compound searching for like the last guy, and it's just like a guy standing like on a pier like looking out to the water, and you just like run up and beat him up to get the challenge. But I did a thing where, because it's actually really fun to fight like a large group of like 15 or 20 guys. So I ran around that whole training compound, and I got everyone to start chasing me. And you're like running around, and you can pivot the camera so that like it's looking behind you, and you see like these 20 guys like, following, like running, like James Bond is jogging and everyone else is jogging behind him. And I went to like the edge of the water, and they just come at me like one by one, and I was like countering each of them and throwing them into the water, and I did it like 20 times in a row. I threw these guys in the water, and then I went to the electric room, and I tried to get them all to like follow me so that as many as possible we like standing on the water, and I tried to like electrocute like a bunch of guys at the same time. Uh, I actually got like, I was doing screen recordings because I thought maybe
You just try
some of
to
that would
electrocute
make
as
it
many people as you
into
can
my
at once.
because I thought I had this vision where I was like, oh, I could make like a hip hop rap where I'm like jogging around the compound with like 20 guys following me, or I'm like throwing guys into the water or something.
Yeah. Something that I like about like stealth games like Splinter Cell and like this James Bond one too is like usually like whenever you die, there'll be like a voice line from whoever's supposed to be on comms with you. And like if you're
Right.
doing something like if you're dying because you're trying to do something really silly, then like it's always like really out of place because like it's like yeah, I was just throwing 50 guys off a cliff and then like I slipped and fell and you were like, oh no, like that's gonna ruin the whole mission. Like it's like yeah, like that happened like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, that radio is reminding me of I saw someone was like talking about this 007 game, and they alluded to like the cliche like triple A experiences where like your character's always like doing some kind of like Uncharted or like running through some kind of sequence with like a someone in their ear, like on the radio. And they show a
Mhm.
clip. I don't know where this clip came from. Maybe they had taken it from somewhere else, but it was like a clip of like a 3D Mario game where like Mario's like running on some blocks, but he pretends that like he's talking to Peach by radio, like on his earpiece. And then like it's like Peach, this like serious sounding like female voice comes in and they're like, Bowser's castle is just up ahead. And then Mario's like, I thought I smelled something burning. And it's like this little quip back and forth. And then they're like, this is serious, M. Like, this is the big leagues or whatever. And like they're going back and forth. Like, but it sounds so like gritty and like you have this Mario voice that's just like, like, uh, I'll find that clip and send it because I thought it was just like, it's funny how they can really distill like, it's like, yeah, I guess every AAA game I've played has this like radio banter back and forth that also is like telling the player kind of what to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I remember Lambert being like a pretty good character in the first few Splinter Cell games.
Yeah, I really like that. I love like an operative in the field and then someone who has like all the information on the radio and just going back and forth. Like, yeah, that's what I liked so much about this first like James Bond mission was like someone who's just disoriented, like washed up on a beach, and then like they just start talking on the radio and they're like quick about it. They're like, this is the state that I'm in, this is my idea, like I'm a bit cold, but it doesn't matter. Like they're sort of, and then the radio person who knows like vastly more about the situation and everything, it sort of has to rely on this one like eyes and ears kind of thing. And like I like when they're like sort of like you still there or like what do you see, and you're kind of like, yeah, just making my like sort of updating them, like doing like kind of not like just being so like clear about like this is where I am, this is what I see, this is what I think and hear, and then they
Yeah.
just like take that and feed you back like kind of only what you need to know for the next little piece. uh I find
Yeah,
that such a
something like
fun cooperation. Like it's
yeah.
like two people that are very different cooperating unexpectedly, but they're both have enough training to just be very efficient about it and like responsible or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I like I'm pretty excited to see like the only real like application of AI that I'm excited to see in video games is like the potential for it to uh for people to be able to like have regular conversation with NPCs and stuff like that. Because I think like a game, like I've seen people try to do games where you're doing the intel instead of the operative, um, but like all of them so far like are like there's a missing piece of like it being too much like a point and click like logic puzzle where like I think if you like had a game where like you were to play as Lambert and like you're telling like the operative what to do, like if they had like an AI or like I guess machine learning model like that's like listening to your speech and then like trained on like a bunch of people playing that game before and then like doing things based on what you're telling it, like that would be really cool to see, I think. But like I don't really know if there's like another way to do something like that than besides putting AI in your game, and then you would have to like list it as like an AI, like because that's a thing now, I guess. Like people are tagging
Yeah,
like the
people
games they
don't.
make with AI. Yeah.
I guess
So I
the
wonder if
issue,
that would count.
but even just like talking, like I've never been able to get like Surrey, for example, to like understand what I'm saying. So like right away, like voice voice has not been very satisfying for me, like just in terms of getting any AI to like understand, even like understand quickly what I'm saying. And then
Yeah.
there's always like then right away there's like a pause where like it never AI doesn't want to like cut you off, or it's got to process a little bit, so it can never like cut in and like you can't have like or that urgency or whatever. uh and then I guess we could simulate this. Like it would sort of like the today's technologies like ChatGPT. So if you just told like ChatGPT like pretend you're an operative, like right away it would just have trouble remembering like the state of the world or not like repeating
Yeah.
itself, or I feel, or like being
Yeah,
too
like I tried
yeah
to play a game of chess with the Chat GPT chat model, and it couldn't remember like where the
Yeah.
pieces were. So
Yeah, so in that case, yeah,
I
like
can
that you're
totally
kind
see
of
it just
yeah.
forgetting how to play a game, like a social game like that or
Yeah, because
something.
like
Yeah.
even that's a good example because you could pretend you're on the radio and just be like, move pawn to e4, and it would just do some stupid move and be like confused and like even with that level of like limited information, it only has these moves that have to be chess moves. It's not even
Mhm.
like we can't even build a radio conversation around that where it's like feeding us back like, oh, looks like this bishop is gonna attack or something like that. Uh,
Mhm.
like it would fumble kind of on that. Yeah, I feel like that would be maybe one of the hardest things to push AI where like you want like this human connection that's urgent, that it like information is being like dropped and filtered and prioritized based on like life or death or something. So like you people would be like cutting each other off and giving like limited information that's just enough to for the other person to like deliver them back like what they need to know, like how many enemies are coming up or
Yeah.
uh yeah,
But I
and
mean,
there'd be
like,
sort of
yeah, if you had like an AI as that operative, yeah, then it would like all it would have is the information that you tell it. Well, I guess like actually maybe it might be really hard to get an AI model not to try to know like like what's around the corner already or something if it's trained a bunch on people that have already played or something. Huh.
yeah, it's funny when like it's kind of fun when they do like the ideal, like if they do scripted radio and we're sort of watching that play out in the James Bond game, it makes you feel like this is so cool because it's like the perfect scripted back and forth. And then our imaginations kind of like quickly imagine like, oh, what if like this was real or we could live more in that universe or something. So that's like I feel like that's one direction is like show people such a perfect example that it makes their imagination like run wild with potential. But then the other side is like if you actually gave someone like just do whatever you want kind of thing with this, like you built sort of like an operative and the human players like the radio, uh, and and you sort of said like do whatever you want. I feel like it would be like, well, the thing we want to do is like
Yeah, like I feel like you could
yeah, we'd
still
want to
have it
be like
work within like a
yeah.
set of rules or something. Like
Or even
where
for
like if
us, like how
you
would we play?
right,
You know,
yeah,
like
but
we
yeah,
couldn't
you're
really
right. If you
follow.
said do whatever you want, like would it just do the most optimal thing by
Yeah.
default? Like
Or
yeah.
like as a human,
Yeah,
you'd
you'd
be
have
like,
to
well, I
stop
want to
it
do
from
something
doing
like
that.
cool,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like we like without feeding us lines, like we don't even know how to talk in a cool way over the radio. So like we'd have to teach ourselves that just to like bring
Yeah.
that to the game. And then at that point we're just sort of it's sort of like, but we'd never do it in the way we imagine it happening. That's like in our minds, we have such a cool voice and it's tight and it's back and forth. But in reality, it's like we would literally be like a voice actor trying to do like our own performance for ourselves. Uh, and maybe it would be funner to see like just kind of a scripted scene play out and feel like it's fun to just like imagine ourselves as one of the two characters, especially if you have control over one of them. And then you're just like, that's me. And then whatever that character says that's like been scripted and voice acted, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I said like in that situation. And like,
Yeah, I
yeah, it'll be
guess you could
cool.
just have that be a two-player game as well. Like you could you could
Yeah,
just
that's
have
like
like a
a
two-player
thing.
lobby.
Yeah, it would be so fun actually for like if a game told you like here's a set of like phrases and code words and then it would like train you to like when you see a situation break it down into how you can communicate it with these like code words. And then as you get better at the game, you'd just be so efficient at like describing situations and like
Right.
relaying them. And then as like the person on the other side of the radio, you'd be learning like how to intake this description and then feed back like what needs to be done. And then like it would just that would be a fun game where you just like log into the game and people start feeding you like audio information and you're like like you're calling out like code names like this code name like do this and this like this other code name will be approaching and like you could sort of feel like you're really relaying like what's happening to all these operatives like that are semi distracted like sort of encountering things that they're feeding to you or not. And uh, it would be cool because you could get like more and more complex with it until there's
Yeah.
just this chaos where you're just sort of people are all cooperating and winning like by just like short radio bursts like to
Yeah. Yeah, like I
control.
find that's like really satisfying to have like whenever I played like online games or anything like that where there's a lot of different mechanics and then like there does end up being like basically like another language that you end up speaking like to make like the most efficient like plays and like decisions and stuff like that. So I feel like that would be like a really good game model like in that with the context of like operatives and like Intel or something because then like you that like there is that like satisfying game mechanic of like yeah defining the language that you're using like into a set of like a structured set to speak and then doing it so correctly that like you're just winning the game. Like
Yeah.
there's like a really satisfying piece to that I think about like speaking language in games and like that could be like leveraged into like its own game and yeah that would be really cool.
At one point I wanted to like write out like a script for a YouTube video, and then I would just record myself like doing all the radio bits, and I would try to find some filter that would make my voice like sound like it's kind of crackly on a radio.
Mhm.
Uh, and I thought that would be fun because it is fun to like I was imagining some situation where like in the future you have this like hierarchy of like radio operatives all the way down to like the operators that do the actual mission on but it would be like on a given planet. Like it would be like a mission on a floor of a building in a city on a planet in a certain like region of the solar system like in the universe or whatever, and then you'd have like the radio comms all the way down where uh maybe it would start at the bottom where like someone would be like target found, like target located, requesting permission to like launch the mission or whatever, and then you'd hear the radio go all the way up to like the highest level of command, like the universe being like permission granted, and then you'd see like the permission would make its way down but like being more and more precise until like you tell the actual team like okay like helicopter one ready to go, like ready, like permission to launch, and then like you'd hear that radio comms like land the helicopter, repel, do the mission, like take out the target, report the success, and then you'd have like success be reported all the way up. But you'd get this like sense that like oh like this is happening like on just this one building on this one planet, but also like many other planets, and like there's sort of like a centralized command that is like deciding like how to deconflict like all these like this universe of like professional missions happening. Uh, and I thought it would be cool to just kind of write like how do you make it more and more general as it goes up, and then like more and more specific all the way down to like two guys in a hallway, like uh like checking doors or something. It felt like it's really cool to have like that precision, but then have it just be like the minimal information needed to like keep everyone informed as it goes like up and down. uh
Yeah.
I thought it would be fun to try to write that, and then it would just be fun maybe even to like get in the headspace of like like you receive this radio comm, and then you just like hit the button, it goes like and then you like say your quick thing, and then go out.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the idea of like speaking to an AI still instead of
I
another
wonder if
person.
AI is needed though.
Sometimes like yeah, like yeah, I guess maybe it wouldn't
Maybe-
have to be AI, but like to get the
I
most
guess
authentic
AI, yeah,
experience,
I'm
you would have
interested
to
in,
have something like that is machine trained on like a
yeah, maybe,
full
yeah,
scale
especially yeah, if
behavior,
you
I would
want to
think.
do voice, basically like voice to text. Like as soon as you have text, you could like parse the text for like command words. But if yeah, AI could be used to like do translate the voice into like transcribed. Because yeah, one
Mhm.
time I thought, imagine if you had like a top-down map, like those old like Rainbow Six maps, or like kind of like Hotline Miami style, like top-down graphics, and you could sort of see like the layout of like an office space or something, and then you could see like just like simple like circles with like where the people are.
Mhm.
uh, and you could give commands, like you could like every character that you have like radio contact with would have like a code like A1 or B2 or whatever, And so you could say you could make like in advance you could plan like waypoints like at certain doors or whatever. You could give them like code names. So you could give a radio command like A1 proceed to like door D1, and then you'd see like that character moves down the hallway, and maybe like that character would even report to you like things that you can't see on the map, but you'd be like, you'd be like, okay, like team one go ahead to like flash the room or something, and then but you'd have but that would be a situation where the game would tell you like all the radio commands you can give, and you'd sort of be responsible for like the timing and the coordination of like different teams. Like you'd decide which hallways they go down, which rooms they search, like when they have permission to like do something, or like someone would go down and you'd be like sending replacement, like from the backup team, like proceed this way, like to meet up with this team to like add the replacement or something.
Mm-hmm.
But you could make it like you could have like 2 or 3 different buildings going on at once, and like so that's the difficulty, is like going in and out between the different teams, like trying to balance like the situation in real time, like how much information can you like intake and then relay to like sort of keep the pace of everyone, and like you could go for like a time record or something.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of the games that they added, because I guess May is like a pretty big month for like game announcements and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
summer. I'm waiting for the Min-Max Summer Game Fest travelogue to be
is that
released.
going to be like a day
Yeah, they
soon?
always. Yeah, Summer Games Fest. It's like this little venue in LA where different games will advertise, and a lot of the games press will be there. So Min-Max usually does a thing where they like record themselves walking through, like they eat lunch there. They check out like different gaming venues, and it always feels a little bit fun because you see like they meet up with different games press, and I guess it's maybe an event that it's like press only, but there's like sometimes games will have like fancy displays or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
I think
game.
yeah,
This one
which
game
game?
I recently I put in the chat there. It's called like Four Leaf Fields. I guess it's like a Stardew Valley. It looks like pretty much like a Stardew Valley clone almost. But there's I guess like its standout feature is that it has some sort of like gossip system or something like that, which I think would make like for me that would make like the villagers more interesting to talk to.
Yeah, that's a whole line of mechanics that uh, I'd be interested to see. Because yeah, I just never end up like talking to characters somehow. But that's what's so striking to me of this 007 story, is that in many missions, like I actually do want to like talk to characters and try different dialogue options because I'm kind of interested in the characters. And that's something new for me, where usually I would just like kind of run to the objective, but now that I'm into the story, I'm more interested in hearing more. And I wonder if that could extend to some game like this, where if it just sort of builds the world simply off the start, then I would be interested in like going and visiting characters to learn more about the world. But so far, that's never really happened.
Yeah. There's also this one that I saw called Neighborhoods that it's like I guess it's a city builder, but it's supposed to be like more focused on like making the people happy. So like it's about
I
like
guess that is the new territory. Like, that's games haven't been doing that.
yeah.
So it's fascinating. Oh, like how it's sort of like clay somehow.
Yeah, I thought the art style was really cool. Like I hope like it looks like it might be a pretty simple one, but that's kind of what I want sometimes. Like it seems like it's like just large scale enough. Like it reminds me of like the Simpsons Tapped Out game, like that mobile game. It kind of has like that feeling to it a little bit. But I don't think it's like mobile structured like that. I think it's like cooler, but it just has like a really cute feeling like game, I think.
Yeah, I find somehow like just in terms of how much time I spend, like sometimes it's hard to sit down with a game if it's not feeding me like a clear objective. If it's sort of more like make the people happy. I guess my issue is I never have exactly like a done definition. Like, it's sort of like keeping everyone, like making everyone happy and keeping them happy is sometimes like a never ending task. So I rely more on like, if it's like make 5 people happy and then I do that, that feels more tangible. But it doesn't, it's not, somehow it's hard to sort of feel like, okay, now I'm good at making people happy. Like it always feels like whatever point I'm at, it's unclear to me like what skill I've built almost like in order to like generalize the skill or feel like, you know, I'm great at making people happy. Uh, it's hard to feel like I've mastered that, or whether the game is kind of always asking me to like solve kind of like a slightly different puzzle about happiness, or like I imagine eventually somehow I've optimized like too heavily on some metrics and then it leads to like a collapse or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found like in like I was playing Tropico. There's a new Tropico coming out soon too, which I'm excited about. Yeah, I was playing the I think it's like 6 is the one that I was playing. Um yeah. Uh it yeah, it deals with that that sort of thing. It's like a city builder where like you can fail like really easily if you like start making uh like no income, but like that can happen, like you have to basically make like a bunch of different factions happy, and like yeah, it's you're like an island nation in that one, and you go through like all the different eras of like modern times, I guess. So like you constantly have like at first you're like working with like the kingdom or something, and then you're like you start to work with like world powers, and then like it I don't know, I haven't gotten like too much further than that, but um yeah, I thought it was like it's a pretty well balanced game like when it comes to that, but like it was like one of the first city builders that I played where like the people's happiness like mattered like big time. I guess like Stronghold Crusader would have been the first one where NPC happiness in a city builder. And then before that it was like I remember playing a lot of like Age of Empires, and I don't think the like people happiness in that game mattered.
All right. Yeah, I was thinking that uh in these like sometimes like if I knew these games were flexible enough where, for example, I could just kind of figure out like, for example, what is the most high paying job in the game, and then I would decide that everyone is going to have that same job, and then I'll just do a pipeline of like like I would have one section of my city where it's like people live, then they go to school, then they go to the highest paying job, then you take all the money and you invest it in like some kind of, I don't know, some kind of like way. I guess I would just invest it in building more housing so I could have like more people to do the job to get more money. And that feels like a society, like a dystopian society more and more, but it's like the most pleasing to me where it's like everyone goes from the like from birth to living to school to the gym to the profession, and it's everything's like very streamlined and simple and there's no like waste. And then if people are like unhappy, I would slowly add like always with art in them or something to like cheer them up. But then uh I feel like the better these games are, the more they resist. Like you can't break them in that way. They have
Yeah.
like this balance where it turns out like you need like a scattering of different jobs. But once it fans out too much, I find like it gets too. It's like, oh, like it's too many things going on for me to like. It frustrates me. I want to like simplify and make everything the same color and shape to like make it easily manageable, recognizable. But if it's like you have to have a variation of buildings and things are mixed, then for me it feels more like less. It's like less organized, more uh displeasing or something. Like I remember even in The Sims, it would sort of be like I optimize The Sims, and then if my guy's unhappy, I just like put art in the room. Like I don't think about what
Yeah.
art I just buy like
Yeah.
the art with the highest like art rating and put it in the corner so that it like counts for the room. And I'm never like I guess if the more detailed the game is, the more it would have some kind of mechanic where you have to place things in like a aesthetically pleasing way. which is like
Yeah.
undefined, ultimately undefinable, but the game would have like some opinion that's probably good about what that is. Like the screenshots of the game look like a nice, like balanced, like town. Uh, but to me, I would be so obsessed with like organizing in a way that makes it less pleasing, because then it would just look like this like boring town that has like uniform regions. So that's
Yeah.
the challenge. But then in my mind, like that's why these games are difficult. Like they ultimately are not very like pleasing, because like my brain pushes me to like simplify, optimize, and like make everything uniform. But then I
Mm.
look at it and then it's like visually ugly, and it's like, oh, I should make it like prettier. But then it's like, but if I make it prettier, it'll be more confusing, and maybe, yeah, it's just interesting. It's like an interesting conflict that I have. Uh, so then I
Yeah.
never really know.
Yeah, I
It's
found
hard to
I
sit down and,
was
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess in terms of like sitting down for like 1 hour and sort of thinking like, what do I want to accomplish? And it's sort of almost like a, a tension in my mind of like, is my goal to make things look nice when, but if I'm making things look nice, there's never a point where it's like, okay, I'm done, it looks nice. It's like maybe it could be a bit nicer, or sometimes I look at stuff and it's like, well, it doesn't look as nice as I want, but I don't know what to change or what
Yeah.
I could
Yeah, I
change.
find like I used to play like a lot of The Sims, and I remember like downloading a lot of mods for like texture packs and like furniture and stuff like that. And finding like the more like cluttered I made a space with like just random garbage that like were like non-usable objects, like a stack of books or something that the
Yeah.
sim couldn't even interact with. Like I found like the more I did that to the space, like the better like I felt about playing the game longer. And like
That's
it was
interesting.
like yeah, like it was like strange in the way where like the more I like mimicked reality with the game, like the more I was like invested in the characters and the more like that I wanted to like interact with that character's world more, I guess. Like
It's
but
true about
yeah,
real life too.
like
Like we
yeah.
just feel better if we're in a
But
room
like
with
I
stuff.
also yeah, like I also experienced that as well where like my like when I was younger playing The Sims, because I started playing The Sims when I was like probably like 7 years old or something, or like maybe 12. Uh but like I can remember doing that too, where the like my Sims houses were all just like drywall with like the single person bed in it. And like that was
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and then it was like but my sim was like an astronaut. And they would just have like
Yeah.
one bookshelf, one bookshelf, like just something stupid like that. Like, yeah. And then I remember like, yeah, I can like now that I think about it, I can see kind of like a like an increase in like understanding of life, like in my reflection of like how my Sims gameplay evolved. Like it was like, oh, like yeah, I guess my sim is gonna want to have their room look good. Like,
I
yeah,
feel like my thing, like I still like the idea of just like a small living space with like the things I need for practical purposes. But then I do also like in life, it's always like, why am I so it's like I have my computer in this like white room with like nothing. It's like, why am I unhappy? It's like it's this eternal question of like, it's like maybe I should like buy things that don't count directly towards the objective, that just are there. But it's actually funny. I have like a white plastic clear bin with all the little stickers or like art or little cute things that I've collected. They're all just like in this white plastic bin in my office, and that's sort of like it's almost like that's the feel good bin. Like I don't spread it around the room or anything. It's just all
yeah.
collected in this one bin, and it's like there we go. Like now if I feel sad, I just look at this bin and there's all these
It's
like
like
cute looking things in
it makes
it.
me think like literally of like your cat, and you have like the toy bin for the cat. It's like, and then you
Yeah.
have like the toy bin for you, like. But that's like it
Yeah.
makes the cat feel like it's like more human, maybe to see you guys do the same.
That's also in general in life too. Like sometimes I look at my calendar and I try to like block out like the ideal schedule, but it's like a fight where as soon as I do that, I get bored. Like it's like, oh, I can see all the time I've allocated like in the next few weeks for things, and I never quite feel like doing the thing that comes up on the calendar, but I know that like it's been balanced
Yeah.
scientifically or something in whatever way I've decided. But
Yeah.
then it's sort of like you sort of realize like as soon as you define the structure, it becomes boring and you need like some variability. But then it's like, well, how much time should I invest in like making it variable and exciting? And that'll
Yeah.
lead to like less. It's like then I can't really efficiently count the hours I've spent with stuff. And so yeah, that's the
Yeah, it's like and
tension.
then you just
Yeah,
become, like, focused on optimizing rest or something and, like, for trying to be like, "I
yeah,
need days, I need break days," like, and it's like, well, wait a minute, if you're scheduling that, then, like, you're still you're still, like, structuring when
right.
you're allowed to take a break. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's like at some point, then it's like whatever I decide on, I realize like, oh, if it's just me, there's no external feedback, nothing actually matters, whatever I achieve. So then you have to like add another person, but then the person adds like a lot of variability. So then you never, uh, you like lose a lot of control of whatever you're trying to optimize, with like, sort of like accounting for other people.
Yeah, I
And then
feel
I
like
guess that's interesting about these games as well, where like I think eventually I do realize like whether it's optimal or aesthetically pleasing, if it's a single player game, I start to wonder like, well, actually, what could I really accomplish here unless like someone else comes to my house and like I show them like, oh, look at this like town I built or something. Like I need some kind of like it's like the game itself can't tell you anything as an individual. Ultimately, they need to like bring in someone else to view your city or allow
yeah.
you to like photograph your city and put it in the real world or something.
Yeah, it's funny, I was watching for some reason this reminded me of it, but, uh, like, I'll watch, like, Hitman playthroughs and stuff like that. Sometimes, like, just for the environments, like, there's one level where he's, like, wearing, like, a Hawaiian shirt, and he's in, like, Thailand or something like that, I
Yeah,
think. And, like, sometimes I'll watch that one just for, like, the environment, and
yeah,
it made me think, like, I kind of wish there was, like, some sort of mod or, like, just game itself that
right.
was, like, you go on vacation and, like, your goals are, like, vacation goals or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I wish that Elden Ring had like a vacation mode where I could just walk around the Elden Ring world. And
Yeah, that'd
then
be cool.
also the new game like Bungie Marathon. It's like a really punishing like extraction shooter, but I wish I could just have a vacation mode like where I walk around the marathon world, or better yet, like a walking simulator with a storyline where I'm like walking around the marathon like weird alien 3D printed world.
Yeah.
Uh, but this James Bond game is also delivering me that. Like many of the James Bond missions, they begin with like you can't take your gun out, you can't attack people. You're sort of walking around a very nice environment, like picking up like you're talking to people, picking up clues, and then the game does a good job of like at some point you pass like the security check and there's like more open-ended combat, or you can only shoot at people if they start shooting at you first, and they sort of grant you like the license to kill on the spot if you get into like a more heavy combat. Otherwise,
Mhm.
like you just don't. That's like not part of the mission. But
Yeah.
that game. That's what's so fun about this James Bond game. That like yeah. Now that we're talking about this, like that it kind of is like it does force you to like just walk around and enjoy like the environment for a large part of the mission, and then you feel like you are really are engaging with the environment once it gets more like you have to bluff like guards or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably play more of it today.
Yeah, if we
Um,
talk next week, I'll be interested to hear. Because yeah, the next thing you'll go through is like the training montage and the first mission, and there's a really uh, yeah, like after all the training montage and you sort of go on your first mission, it has a nice it feels like a whole it actually feels like a 90-minute like that's what's so striking to me is every 90 minutes of this game feels like a 90-minute James Bond film where like because it all like you sit down to play for like an hour and a half and it starts with like beginning a mission, doing exposition, like talking to people, the plot builds, you have this like action packed sequence, and then usually there's like a big set piece conclusion, and then it's sort of, then you're back at the headquarters for like a briefing, and it like does that in like 90-minute cycles, and it just feels like it's it is like an interactive movie every 90 minutes, but it's like almost like a TV show in that the next
Yeah.
mission is kind of informed by the previous, but it has those same cycles of like slow beginning, character building.
Yeah, I
Uh,
noticed at least in the first mission there is like a lot of cutscenes where like it'll be like you'll dash to a corner and then it'll kind of switch to a little bit of a cutscene where your character is like controlled on his own or something for a bit. And
yeah,
like I like that style because it feels like it's like a very cinematic game, I suppose. Like yeah, it feels like really nice to play. Like it feels very relaxing to play because like it is, at least so far, a little bit like handheldy in like directions that it
yeah,
like points you in like that way. Yeah, like if you don't know, like it, like I noticed like there was one part where I was like popping out of like a crawl area out onto like the side of a cliff, and just by default it like completely pointed my camera in the direction of the side of the cliff that I wanted to be going in.
yeah,
It was like okay, I know I'm turning right, I know I'm not turning left, even though there was like a space to turn left there, like if I like that looked equally as obvious to take, like if it hadn't had pointed the camera in that direction.
yeah.
Like
It's actually also, yeah, mentioning the camera, like, yeah, usually it has some kind of opinion about where the camera should be pointed. And you always have like, if you move the right stick, it'll budge the camera a little bit. But like at different times, it's very like, it'll spring you back to like a certain shot. But
yeah.
it always feels like the most cinematic angle, which is another addition to this game where if you're just sort of like moving through the world, the camera's usually giving you this almost a shot that looks like a movie, and you feel like you have control of the camera, but it's always like helping you out, like even during combat, like it'll frame, the camera will like snap to the correct angle where whatever's happening in combat really looks like like you're sliding across a table. Like you don't, like, because normally you could like whip the camera around to look away from the action and just like check corners or something, but this game is like showing you on screen the thing that looks cool, and that's a big step. Because yeah, usually I'm not even, most levels the camera is just by default pointing in the right direction, which is pretty impressive, and I don't even think about the camera angle
Mhm.
or like managing the camera, and it's a pretty big achievement for like how they figured that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well, I guess maybe the deepest dive, I don't know if the deepest dive is a public, I think it is a public video, but once you uh there's certain like stopping points for the deepest dive. Like they're going to do 3 deepest dive episodes where they just talk about everything that happened in detail for certain sections of the game. And
Mhm.
there's like, deepest dive stopping point number 1. Uh, like there's a mission called All the Time in the World. And they said once you finish that mission, which is like one of the first missions, that's like the stopping point. Then if you listen to like the first deepest dive episode, they do like they talk
Oh,
about
like
all the
they
branches, and
talk in depth about like up to that
yeah,
point.
like they sort of go
That's
all
cool.
all into spoilers, but they never pass because no one, even the people in the deepest dive in Minmax, they haven't played past that mission, so they don't know what happens. And then there's a second, like I've made it to the second stopping point, which is on the 15th of June. They'll do the next sort of the middle section of the game, and then after that, everybody plays to the end, and they do a third installment. Yeah.
Mhm. It's a good way to do that, I think, especially if it's like a longer game too.
It's super fun, yeah, because then you can go into like the min-max. There's a channel in the min-max Discord called like 007 Deepest Dive, and everyone you sort of know that everyone is playing to the next like stopping point, and once you reach that stopping point, you like everyone will tag their post with like spoilers. Like they'll in Discord they'll black out any sentence that is a spoiler, but you also know that once you make it to the stopping point, you can just read everything because it'll all be like previous to the stopping point. But it really
Mhm.
feels like you're sort of playing the game and talking about it and like adding your thoughts to that channel. and reading the spoilers once you've passed the part. And then yeah, it's fun to have the big like 2 hour. I think it was even 3 hours that they did on the first section of the game. And it's fun to listen to that just like right after playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good way to like just get people interested more in the game.
Yeah.
Like like I'm sure like having that aspect to it. I always like when like games or like movies have like forums based around them. Cuz like
Yeah, I've never had that exact. This is sort of like the first time I'm going through it in real time, and it feels like a very nice like community event.
yeah. Yeah, I always think back to like I think it was like when the first Cloverfield movie came out. There was like a lot of online stuff. They did kind of like an online like escape room campaign kind of idea where like you would find out different web addresses by like solving like cryptic puzzles on like a website or something, and it would like give you more information about like kind of like a little side story in the movie or something. And like yeah, that was so cool. And I think also like the series Lost did something like that too. I think they might have been by the same guy. But uh yeah, like I always think it's cool when like even though that's not what they're doing with this, like uh it's always like interesting to me how people have like side media for like a focal point of media, and then they make that like interesting enough or like community building it enough that like everybody is just in on like they're just like in on the community for that thing. Like, and it ends up like being a good one too. Like it's interesting to see like how people create like good community and like how I guess like it must be like well, I don't know if it's like a PR team or not. But like I'm sure there's a lot of people like trying to keep the community good around it because there's a lot of like good like a lot of fans for James Bond. So like I'm sure there would be like dedicated people that are like dedicated to trying to keep every James Bond fan good or something.
And there's more content coming for this game. They've released like for the next year, like the roadmap. They're gonna add like another campaign mission. They're gonna add like a new game plus option, whatever that means. Uh, and even outside the campaign, as you move through the campaign, you unlock these things called tax sims. And then if you go like in the main menu, you can choose campaign or like tax sim. And the tax sim thing, it loads you into this. It's almost like a different part of the MI6 like headquarters. Like it has a whole environment for them, and you can like load up these missions that are like one off. They basically just train you to do different combat maneuvers. Like one of them is like do this, like do throw a guy over a ledge, push a guy into another guy. That's how you like complete that tax sim, and then once you complete it, it goes to like the next one.
Mm.
But those are once you get into the combat, those tax sim things really do a good job of teaching you all the different moves you can do, which end up being kind of important for like managing combat, where it makes it more fun. Yeah, and actually, in terms of difficulty, I think the middle difficulty is intended, and then the hardest difficulty is purest. And the difference that I've found is that if you play on the hardest difficulty, they don't show you like a yellow, like when an enemy is about to attack you, it does like a yellow flash, giving you like the ability to parry with the right timing. But on the
Yeah.
hardest difficulty, if an enemy is like on screen, you don't see any yellow flash. You just see them sort of like wind up, and you have to like read the animation. And I found that was not. So I tried Purist for a bit, but I went back to the norm, like the middle, uh, the intended, they call it, difficulty, because I like to see those flashes. Otherwise, I can't really understand what the timing is for the animations.
Mm. Suppose we could probably end here for today.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's a lot of interesting
I'm
stuff.
excited for you to play more and then give your thoughts. Yeah, because there's so many things that happen in the game that are worth talking about.
Yeah, it seems really good so far. I just
Yeah.
like yeah, the last like line I guess that I remember is him being like, "I'm not MI6," and then he like blows up a face. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a funny moment too, where it's like just because it's James Bond, I'm gonna assume he made it out of there, but it's so over the top that it's like, well, how's that a move that worked for him? Like,
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, I'll see you.